Motherhood, but not quite as we imagine. Thought-provoking, refreshing, straightforward, sometimes taboo, often seemingly ordinary, but always honest. Welcome to School for Mothers, opening conversations we all need to have, exploring ways in which you can be fulfilled as a woman, once a mother. Now here is your host, mother of 10, Danusia Melina Durban.
Welcome back to the School for Mothers podcast. I'm your host, Danusia Melina Durban. I've got to tell you a little secret before we start. One episode when I said hello, I'm your host, you'll never guess what I did. I introduced myself and didn't say my name right. Yep, I'm serious. I recorded everything in one take, and when I listened back to it, I was horrified to hear I'd said my name wrong. But I only had a few minutes to get in the car and get my triplets from school, and our podcast editor Marie was all primed to receive the episode, so I really didn't have time to re-record it. Now, has anyone ever spotted this fundamental mistake? Well, no. I've not gotten any emails about it, so phew. Maybe I might have got away with it. Talking of feedback, before we move on to this week's episode, I've got to tell you about some words from some of our listeners. First up is from another podcast host, and I want to give Janine Esbrand a big shout out. Thank you for your kind words. Here's what she said. Your perspective about different models of motherhood is golden. Well, Janine, thank you. I'm forever grateful for you tuning in the first place and for cheering me on as a new podcast host. You obviously know what goes on to actually get a podcast out, and it's quite a lot of hard work, actually. You really had to get your act together. So I was really chuffed that you wrote in and told me. So I'm really glad also that the SFM podcast is landing really well for you. And I must say, I've been listening to Careers Beyond Motherhood, your podcast, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love it too. So there you go. Listeners, go and have a listen to Careers Beyond Motherhood podcast. I think you'll really like it. Then there were words on Facebook about last week's episode in which Jessica Huey and I talk about purpose. So here's another shout out, and this time it's for Gina Gillam, who said, I hope I've got your surname right. Sorry if I've made a mess of that one. Anyway, what she said was, loved this podcast. Earthy, real, level-headed, reflective, positive, without glossy pretension. Refreshing. Thank you both. Oh, Gina, thank you for listening in, and thank you for your feedback. I really like your words, and it definitely made my day. I so appreciate you sharing your love for this podcast. You're in my mind, funnily enough, now as I record, and I just wanted you to know that. Which brings me to one of the best things about School for Mothers. It's our community. So if you haven't already joined our free private Facebook group to connect with other mothers with wishes, ambitions, and big ideas for themselves and the world, then what are you waiting for? Look us up on Facebook. You'll find us called the School for Mothers group. Pretty easy, and it's growing every day. We're going to hit 1,000 members pretty soon, and we'd love you in there with us. So on to this week's episode. It's called Mask. I'm in conversation with businesswoman, speaker, MC performer, writer and theatre director Emma Stroud. And we'll be talking about how we all seem to cover our authentic selves up with masks. So Emma is a bit of a one-off. I'm not going to lie, she really is. She heads up an international leadership consultancy called TruthWorks with her business partner, and they help senior execs, business owners, and entrepreneurs find, speak, and live their truth. Besides that, she's a comedy performer creating sellout shows, and I really know why. And I think by the time the end of this podcast, you'll have a very good idea of why her shows are so amazing. The last one was an award-winning one-woman show called Coming Out of My Box. I think you'll understand. Again, once we get into conversation, I'm pretty sure you'll know why it's about coming out. She's also part of the successful and highly acclaimed improvisation group called Women Improv. I got to tell you, Emma is also behind something called the Be More Banana movement. And she honestly is the only TED Talk speaker to have performed her talk dressed as a banana. I'm really not joking. She's dressed as a banana. Look it up. It's a great talk. Absolutely wonderful. She hosts oodles of national business awards and events as an MC, and she has people, rocking off their chairs. So I know our conversation is absolutely set to be great fun. It will. And it's a very serious topic, this thing of masks. So, okay, let's dive into today's episode. I have a quick question before we dive into this episode on mask. Tell me, do you have a name for your clown, the clown that you are? I mean, the listeners won't know that, that you're a clown, but just help us out here. I'd really like to know.
Yeah, my clown's called Orange.
Ah, okay.
Obviously.
That's an interesting one.
When I was sort of discovering this particular clown, because I think we all have sort of various clowns inside us, one of the parts of the sort of process of working out who the clown was actually writing a letter to my clown self. And interestingly, I didn't know that was part of the process. So my teacher was sort of like, just write a letter to your best friend. And actually the best friend is one of your clowns. And then while I was in this lovely clown state, which is this beautiful sort of euphoric, high, childlike, exciting, amazing place to be, I then had to write a letter back to Emma. So the other part of me, adult Em that's talking right now.
Yes.
And at the bottom of my letter, completely not from me, that's the only way I can describe it, not from me, just went, lots of love, Orange. And I was like, oh, that's my name, while in this lovely child state going, how cool is that? I've got a name.
Wow.
Amazing. And in clown state, you kind of revel in that. And then when you sort of come back into being in the room fully as adult, then when I was telling my teacher and my other fellow clowns, and I was like, my clown's Orange. And they were like, cool. And I was like, yeah. So my clown is called Orange. I am aware that I've got a little bit of an obsession about sort of oranges and bananas, that people are just going to think I'm fruit obsessed. But no, it was just Orange. So yeah.
Orange. Yeah. Well, I hope that we'll move on to the importance of bananas for you during this episode, because I am sure my listeners are going to be able to apply some of the takeaways of, what bananas mean to you and what you've been up to recently with that. So for now, because the episode is mask, I'd love us to start with how you've played with masks professionally. What masks do you have in your life, or have you had?
But I was thinking about this as a topic, and actually this morning I was talking with my personal trainer about masks, because this has been sort of mulling in my head, and it's really interesting when you say masks, most people, their straight default mode is they go into clowns, or they go into scary masks, like from the Scream masks and things like that. And actually, those kind of masks, the real masks that you can actually tangibly grab your hold of, they've actually really helped me, because many years ago, I got to play with commedia dell'arte masks. And for those of you that might not...
I was going to say, what is that?
Yes, might not have studied Italian clowning basis, might not have been your path in your life. So commedia dell'arte, at the heart of commedia, is the easiest way of kind of making it into current modern day references, that there's lots of pantomime characters that all come from commedia dell'arte. So, like the dame, the servant, the prince, the captain, the lover. So if you look at regular pantomimes within the UK, quite a lot of the stock characters actually really do transcend over from commedia dell'arte. The difference is, when you're in that world of Italian commedia, the masks, they're fixed, so they have a really fixed expression, and so as a result you have to it's all about your body and what your body can do underneath it. And I was in my early 20s, I was at uni and studying theatre, and actually having a mask, and a real mask that then dictated my way of behaviour, gave me so much freedom at that time. I think for me, it's the mask piece that I'm most interested in, is the fact that we can play with it both figuratively and metaphorically. And I think just as I'm just about to turn 40, I think this is I know this is the closest to the fully unmasked Emma that I've ever been, which is quite exciting / a little bit terrifying. So that's, and I think that's what I genuinely find interesting in when I'm meeting people. It's like, what mask have they got on, if they have one? And most people do have masks, and they might not even be aware of them. And that's what I find genuinely fascinating. And how do we get to a place so that you can just be really happy being exposed, and or choosing which mask you're going to put on because it serves you.
So true. So really the idea of being a choice, I guess, of whether you have a mask and which one it is and why, what does it do for you, what impact it has. And that whole idea of naked you, I guess, the very natural, full, I like to think of it as that kind of undiluted self that is exposed, as you say. And that's very vulnerable. And deeply exciting, I think.
Yeah.
But then maybe I'm a bit weird on this, but let's not actually have that answer. I'm quite happy not to have the answer there. So let's talk about you and what you just said, which is, I'm hearing you say that mostly people have masks on. So I'm curious now, when do you meet somebody that doesn't have a mask?
I think the time when I see people not having a mask is when they are in a place within themselves where they feel like they're really safe and they're very secure within themselves. And it's a rarity. I'm going to be brutally honest. I think it's a real rarity where you meet somebody and you go, you are exactly the same wherever you go because you have made yourself feel very secure in being you. I remember a friend of mine, who's a very wise woman, and she was traveling around the world. And one of the things while she was traveling around the world and working around the world that she said was, during this process, she was like, it made me realize that we have to become our own homes.
Oh,
and that it's really stuck with me. And actually, when I see people that really are, in my mind, sort of fully unmasked, it's because they really are at home with themselves. And I am yet to ever have met anybody that comes across, as you said, vulnerable, exposed, naked, unmasked, whatever word you want to use. I've never met anybody that's comfortable enough to do that who hasn't done a lot of work on themselves and had a lot of support to help them get to that place. Because I think naturally, as mothers and as parents and people like that, I don't think kids don't have masks. But as we become more socially aware and there's more social pressures on us, I think we learn to, if I behave like this, let me put on that mask. That's why there's normally there's a clown in every school. There's a clown, there's a couple of people in every class. It's like, there's the joker. And the reason that we become the jokers is because this is how I can survive, thrive in this situation. It's a mask. And so we start at quite an early age working out, okay, so if I do this, then that happens. If I do that, then that happens. And actually trying to deconstruct all of that. Now, some of those are really healthy choices and some of those really serve us. But I do also believe that for a lot of us, we put on a mask of like, well, this will protect me. This will make me safe. This will stop me getting hurt. Or if I'm like this to the world, then everybody will be like, oh, that's how she is. Whereas actually underneath you aren't like that, and it's a fear base. So in answer to your question, I don't meet that many people that I truly think are unmasked. But those that I do meet, their integrity, the word authenticity is thrown around loads. Their sense of themselves is so strong that people are just drawn to them, whether they're extrovert, introvert. There's just something about them. You're like, you got something. And for me, that's kind of one of the, it's kind of the elixir of life, isn't it? It's like, let's, just be the best you, pull away all of the stuff and be really who you're here to be. And you know what? Not everybody's going to like it, but that's okay as well, because by that point, if you really are being who you are, you don't really mind because you're comfortable within your own skin. So you've been able to put your mask down and then pick them up as and when you need.
Yeah. So that ability to be, I'm not sure it's even an ability, is it? But that place of being at peace and comfortable in your own skin is like, it is a holy grail for so many of us that would love to be there more often. And I agree with you that the people that I've met like that, there's not many that, I don't know any actually, that haven't done enormous amounts of therapeutic work of all kinds. It's, it's not just, the obvious therapy based, whether it be movement based, whatever it is, or being through quite traumatic experiences that have led them to shedding many masks or having a facility to be conscious about the masks that they have. And so I want to just repeat what you said, because it's a beautiful takeaway. We have to become our own homes. I really love that. It's so important, that message, isn't it? So tell me about giving birth a minute. Giving birth and masks. So like, because of what you do, you play with masks a lot anyway in theatre and MC work, and you're many characters, aren't you? You know how to play with audience and really, well, play's the wrong word. What's the word you'd use?
I'd like to use the word connect and play.
Good. Yeah. I knew I wasn't quite there. So connect and play with audience and teams and, all sorts of human beings in groups. And I'm just wondering, what happened for you in giving birth and masks? What masks did you have?
I think I already sort of made a decision of, right, okay, I'm going to give birth to this person. And in order to do that, I have to navigate my own way through all of the madness that I see when it comes down to people being pregnant. And so I made a decision. I was going to try and have a home birth. And I'm very lucky because of the part of London that I live in. There's one of the most sort of groundbreaking home birth midwife teams in the UK. And this woman's quite phenomenal. So yeah,
that's lucky.
I know, I am very lucky. And it's also because
Sorry, I was talking over you because I'm deeply excited. Like, can you name where it is? Like this?
Oh yes, it's Tooting. So St George. So it's by St George's. And yeah, really ridiculously lucky. And this woman has set up this team, and there's 3 of them full time, and she massively believes in the power of people giving birth at home. And as long as you live within, I think, a 5-mile radius of the hotel, good there, that would be a hospital, not hotel. And sort of oddly, I guess I kind of made that decision of like, right, I'm going to do this. And I'd also, because I have done quite a bit of work on myself and I'm a trained hypnotherapist, I wanted to explore hypnobirthing as well.
Yes.
So I went off and I learnt hypnobirthing, which was a funny experience within itself, because there was me and Dion, the father of my child, and 2 other couples, and all of the men just looked so angry with the fact that they were there, and they were like, oh, okay, we're going to have to go in for this hippie thing. Within 30 minutes, they were all like, oh, this is amazing. We've got a role. And so we sort of made that decision, and I was like, right, I want to be at home. So in a weird way, as I say this and reflect upon it, I guess the mask that I put on was I don't want to do the traditional, because the traditional slightly freaks me out. And there was a lot of, for me, I went to one NHS class, and in the NHS class, I've never felt so much fear. And it was fear in the languaging that all of these women were telling their stories. And in essence, the only way I can describe it was almost like everybody there was trying to outdo each other about how horrific childbirth was going to be. And as somebody that plays with language, I'm like, well, it might be, but it might not be. But by putting that out there energetically, that can't be a great thing. And also, you're then giving lots of fear, lots of energy, hence it being the only one. So when it did come down to me giving birth, I guess I sort of made the decision of, I want to be as natural as I can be, and I want to see how this experience goes. So I guess if I was sort of being slightly cruel on myself, I'd be like, so I put on the hippie mask. So I was like, right, I'm not going to take any drugs, and I'm going to breathe my way through it and sit in water, and it's going to be the most beautiful experience. And so I probably did put the hippie mask on a little bit. And I was fine with that, because I really felt that was the right call for me. It so transpired that 2.5 days later at home, I actually did need some drugs, and the hippie mask was no longer going to serve me, and I did need to go to hospital. And he decided to appear nearly 4 days of labour. So I think my masks gently sort of started to slip. It was like, just get this child out of me because I'm exhausted now.
Yes.
But I do remember there was one bit just before, because he needed a little bit of help to come out. So we used, what's it called? Fontes. Is it Fontes? Is that what it's called? I think. And there was like this team around. And now, admittedly, I might have been quite high on drugs as well. I'm not entirely sure. Really tired and a bit high on drugs. And there's this sort of, amazing experience of like all of this team of people working without saying anything to each other, and it's all like fine. And then there was this moment where I just couldn't help but try and make everybody laugh. And Dion was like looking at me, father of my child, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Just need to make people laugh." And so it was sort of one of those really surreal moments of absolutely knackered. And, for all of the mothers that are listening, they understand it. It's quite painful. And then there was just this natural default mode of, well, you're doing all this kind things to me, so I want to try and do something back. So I'll make you laugh. So I made this lovely Irish midwife laugh about how weird Irish Catholics are versus lesbian women. And she roared. And at that moment, pretty much about a minute after, there was William. So I don't know, in terms of masks, I guess the hippie one, the clown one came out, and the one that was just sort of a slightly more trusting mask as well. Because after a couple of days, to be honest, you're knackered, so you kind of have to just trust. Say that.
That's quite a journey, isn't it? Going, having that deep wish. I actually dearly wanted to have a home birth, but I've never succeeded. And the other day, I was talking with Lacey Haynes on this podcast in an episode, and she had a free birth, so she was at home. She didn't have any professionals. She didn't have any scans, so she didn't enter the system at all. And it was an exhilarating experience to listen to Lacey talk about how empowering for her that was, and that was not as all-encompassing as that for me was what I wanted. But in fact, it was with Harriet and my sixth child. Fifth? Oh, I lose count. Just...
Well, you can.
I do lose count.
I struggle.
No. I've just realised that that's definitely my fifth. And... and I didn't get there. I wasn't able to do it at home. But I think, my goodness, what Mars... And what you've just said about comedy is something that I've done in labour, which I take on this role of actually entertaining people.
Yeah.
I become an entertainer when I'm pregnant. Well, not pregnant, actually giving birth. I really do. That's really interesting, isn't it? Why would we do that? But I've been at births. I've been the birth partner for several women.
Yeah.
And luckily one was at home. So I've kind of, by proxy, seen the amazing beauty of that, the sacred time. But for others in hospital, I've actually been with women who've been very aggressive. I mean, it can be a truly aggressive act to give birth. And one particular friend who will, obviously nobody will know who that is. She could hardly bear to be touched, and she was literally punchy, so it's her default. She'd warned me that that's who she becomes. So I don't know if that's a mask. Is she playing with a mask? I don't know. What do you mean by mask, actually, while we're here?
For me, a mask is a place that you can hide behind and that you can morph into. And I think it's like an extra skin. So this is like obviously not the actual mask that you're putting on. For me, it's I'm going into that role now. And so there we go. And I don't even know if most people are really conscious that they do it. Like when I talk about masks, quite often people look at me a bit blankly, and then I have to explain. It's like, well, when you're going to go and see your boss, that moment when you take a breath and you're just about to walk in and you go, right, I want them to see this of me because I'm very professional. And I'm like, that's a mask. And they're like, oh, right, get it. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, it's about helping people, even suddenly start to become aware of when they're choosing to put them on and what they are. Because I think we can all naturally, because we're very busy, I think we can morph in, and put masks on and take them off and not even really realize, and if you're a mum, we're kind of expert at doing that, because it's like, here's me with my child, here's me with my partner, here's me with my friends, here's me with other mothers, it's all these different masks. And we probably don't even give ourselves permission to see that that's what we're doing. But actually we all do it. And for me, I'm genuinely curious about, once you become more aware of it, are you putting the right things on? Because I think sometimes we get caught in a trap of people expect us to be in a certain way. So it's a very brave thing to go, actually, I'm going to take this off for a bit, because actually it's not actually how I want to be.
Yeah.
And there was a really interesting article in The Guardian about mothers and mothers drinking too much. And I was like, wow, that's so fascinating in terms of, how there's a mask of, well, of course, gosh, you're a mother, you must be exhausted to go home and have a glass of wine. And actually, in a weird way, alcohol does that. It acts as another mask, because we're then drinking, and this is no kind of, not putting anybody down for drinking, but it's this whole idea of, we do it because, okay, I've got my mask now, I've got my glass of wine, so now I can relax, so now I can be me. And I'm like, wow, it's an interesting thing that they've gone, okay, so women who are mothers are drinking a lot more. And how this particular journalist, she was saying, actually, I've stepped out of that. And that within itself is quite interesting. And for me, that's her unmasking herself, going, I don't have to play in that world anymore. That's what a mask is.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of unmasking, I would say, going on. So, for instance, the piece that you're talking about about being sober as a mother, kind of, or even, just really talking about drinking.
Yeah.
And then there's the mental health piece in relation to mothers, particularly.
Yep.
The kind of depression, the anxiety. I mean, generally in the world, particularly we're talking about mental health. So I think that's an unmasking. And I guess we wear these masks a lot for safety purposes, as protectionism.
Yeah, and I think we have to, and I think when I look back on my own upbringing, and I think we choose, this is a mask that, as you say, is going to protect me. This is a mask that makes me feel safer. So that's the mask that I'm going to play with. I mean, I definitely picked up the clown mask when I was about 16, because it was so much safer to be funny than it was to be seen in any other way. So it was a conscious choice? I don't know if I consciously, as my 16-year-old self, went, I'm going to try and be funny. Oh, look, I am. It's very good. Oh, it's making me feel happier. I don't think I thought it that way. But as soon as I realized that the response I was getting from my peers was making me feel better, then why would I possibly put that mask down?
Yeah, exactly. Because you wouldn't necessarily, you can't see the benefits for it. And so when did you realize, or do you realize, what happens for you, Em, for you to think, is this mask working for me? What's the process for you?
I think there's probably been sort of three things that have sort of led me to this place of kind of wanting to peel back masks. I think firstly, I've done a bucket load of therapy on myself. And I think by the very nature of being held in a therapeutic manner makes you realize, where is it? What are the beliefs? What are the behaviors? What are the things that are serving me or not serving me? I think the second thing is, as somebody that has played in theatre and played lots of different roles and have really, as I really have found my kind of my place in terms of using humour and finding lots of joy in humour, actually, and kind of creating different shows and things like that. Actually, in order to do that, what was really annoying, and this was a big part of a process change for me, when I went to drama school, I was sort of 24, 25, and I went to drama school because I was apparently very talented at acting. And the reason that I wanted to carry on with learning how to act was so that I could pretend more. So I was like, brilliant, I'll go drama school, I'll learn how to pretend some more. Yay, I'm gonna be brilliant at this. It's gonna be awesome. And the reality, which sort of crushed myself at the time, was, what? Oh, you actually have to know who you are so that you can then play other characters. Literally was a revelation to me. I was like, and I managed to not join in for the whole of my first year. I managed to keep my mask up. I was like, you're not getting anywhere near me, my psyche, or anything that's happened to me. No, 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 no. And I remember one of mine, she's still a friend of mine actually, one of my mentors, she said to me at the end of the first year, she's like, so it's great. Everybody apparently talks to you and you help them and you hold them, and that's great. But actually what I'm really interested in is, when are we going to get to know the real you? And that summer was the start of my process. That was the first time that that was the first summer that I reached out and started getting a little bit of professional help. Little being the operative word. I was like, I'll drop my toe into that. Oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And I think as soon as you start that, and when you're exploring then different roles, and then you're going into different people's heads, by the very nature, you kind of have to unpeel your own masks. And so every time I write, I've written a few plays, and I've written, just in the process of writing my new one-woman show. Every time I do that, it's like I'm unmasking a different part of me. And there's, because things have changed, things have shifted. And so for me, the creative process and what I think I'm here in the world to do, which I truly believe is to kind of bring more fun and joy in the world, and also hopefully help people think a little bit more. I have to do that for myself. So my process, to get back, is the creative process, and allowing myself the time to really question where things are coming from. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's having a lot of therapeutic and a lot of coaching help, which has really helped. And then the final part for me in terms of my own process is a word that I bang on about quite a lot. It's been a challenge. It's been about a permission piece. Mm. And what I mean by the permission piece is like, am I enough if I'm like this? Is that enough? If I rock up and I'm not funny, is that still okay? If I'm not in that place on that day, if I'm completely just quiet and quite calm, which I can be when I'm really relaxed, and you've seen that side of me, is that enough? And actually, yeah, it is. But to get to that place where I don't feel like I have to perform, which within itself is a mask, has been that journey.
Yeah. I just want to take that in, like the very fact that, giving yourself permission to be enough without the razzle-dazzle entertainment piece, or the kind of, because, I do know how captivatingly, impactful you are as a performer and, in front of people. So it's, God, it takes guts. It takes a lot of hard work. It must have taken you a good deal of hard work to get there. So, and it's funny because as you talk about, am I enough? Very soon I'm going to be talking with Marissa Peer, and do you know Marissa? Have you heard of Marissa? Because she's this hypnotherapist. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that. She's famous for many, many things, but one of the things is her therapeutic work with celebrities and around addictions. And she's fabulous. And so she does a huge amount of work with people around self-esteem and the whole piece around being enough. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation about that, because at the heart of peace and happiness, it's very, very, very tough living a lie of trying to pretend to be enough, when actually, when we look in the mirror, the one person we know, that we're not enough for is ourselves. So yeah, that's why I said it's a kind of holy grail, because I think it does entail a great deal of hard work and unpeeling back layers of stuff.
I think, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view it, I think as women, I think we can do a compare contrast exceedingly well. Not saying that men don't do it, but I think women can excel at that. And I witness and see that happening, and sometimes I have to take a moment and I take a breath, and sometimes I get caught up in that, and I'm like, oh, have I done enough? Am I there enough? Have I done enough? All of these. And actually, it's just taking that breath and taking that moment and going, you're doing the best you can. And then just checking that I actually am doing the best I can. Have I opted out in one way or another? And if I truly believe that I have done the best, it's like, well, that's all I can do. I'm not going to suddenly become the the mother that rocks up with perfectly made cakes, because it's not mine. It's not my kind of calling, unless I bought them from M&S, and then they would be perfect. But clearly, they wouldn't be made by me. Oops. But it's and sometimes I sort of witness and I see people that are both consciously and subconsciously doing that compare contrast, and actually we can't give away our power. Quite often when I'm standing up in front of hundreds of people, and people ask me, "Oh, but Em, don't you get nervous?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do." And one of the things for me about being okay and being able to kind of rock up and be Em is I've learnt, and you are right, it has taken a long time. I've sort of learnt now. It's like I can't give my power to the audience, and your audience could be anything, could be at work, could be other mothers, could be an actual performance. It doesn't matter. It's everybody is going to have their opinion on you, and everyone's going to make their own decision about you. So the only person that you can actually really be okay with is yourself, and you have to just go back to the why you're doing it and the how that you're showing up. And ever since I've kind of really worked at that, everything just seems a lot easier, because it's like, as one of my mentors from drama school said, it was like, if you get 80% of an audience thinking that you're great, you've done extremely well. And just having that in the back of your head, just in life generally, it's like, oh, it's all right if there's 20% that think I'm a bit of an idiot. It's fine, because the rest of the world will get it. Yeah.
Totally. If the rest of the world will get it, but you'd be really lucky if it's only 20%. I'm assuming at least 70% think I'm a complete twerp. So, I'm going for lower numbers. Sometimes I love what you say, but I just think if only, we both do a lot of speaking. So I to ground myself, I have to think, look, if just one person in this room, just one human being listens to something that I have to say and it lands, and it may not even happen today, tonight, it may happen in 2 months, and they think, oh, that I'm happy. And it's not, you already know I hold a very high bar for myself in terms of, my clarity or, my intentions in life and mission in life. But I sometimes feel, because perfectionism is, particularly in my life, I have to try and give myself permission to fuck up, to not be always, hitting 100% or even 80% or whatever it is. But it is really interesting that, you put it like that. So I love that you say that. And we are really, really good at comparing and contrasting, and for most women, or many women, actually we come off worse, in our worlds. We tend to do that. So I'd love you to tell us, because I know lurking in the background of our conversation are bananas, like they're with us. The listeners might not realize that, but
they really are. Like, I've got 2 tattooed on my arm, for example, and as I look round, there's another couple of bananas floating about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us.
I realise it sounds very odd with no context. Hi, I'm Banana Lady. I sort of I think it was about 2.5 years ago. I was invited to a sort of an entrepreneurial lunch, and the theme was, in essence, kind of I can't remember her name. Who's the lady that wears the mad hat with all the tropical fruit on? So she's quite an expressive lady. She's really famous. Names escape me right now.
Yeah, I don't know her name, so we can look her up.
Yes. So we'll look her up. And so there was this whole sort of theme of basically sort of tropical fruits and, be kind of extraordinary. And because I am a clown, and I'm not sort of someone who would wear sort of a little pineapple brooch or a dress with little oranges on it. I sort of took it to Emma land, where it made sense for me. And so I decided to dress as a banana for the day. Yeah. And, and it's a full skin banana. Now I'm quite short. I'm tiny, I'm 5'2". And so the banana outfit was quite long on me as well. So then I had like yellow tights and yellow trainers and my little head, and you could see a little bit of my quiff appearing as well. And I got in a taxi just because it was raining. So I got and went to the lunch, and then I And then I decided to spend the whole day in London dressed as a banana. So I went on the tube and met loads of people. And I went to like pubs and restaurants and chatted, and I had genuinely one of the best days I think I've ever had in my life, because people were so open. I mean, I'm not exactly a threatening banana. So, and literally I was talking to people that I never normally would have talked to. And I had this amazing experience. And I sort of came back home. It really struck me how actually, and it was just after Brexit. So London felt really weird, regardless of your politics. London felt weird on that day. And just everybody just seemed to be really grateful for the fact that I'd brought a bit of fun and a bit of laughter and a bit of joy into their days. I mean, literally, it went a bit mad on social media. Like, I was like, how many more photos of me are up in the world of social media as me as a banana? Oh, wow. And then from that day, it just it sat. And this sort of hashtag Be More Banana appeared, and then that's sort of grown, and to such an extent that it's sort of become a movement of mine. It's sort of my mission, I guess, is kind of where it's led me to, of like just helping more people have more fun and joy in their life. And to have more fun and joy in your life, you have to ask yourself the questions, you have to do the work, and you have to, in essence, you have to be really comfortable. And I apologise about this awful pun. You have to be really careful in your own skin. Oh, I'm sorry, banana skin's a terrible pun.
God.
But you really, oh God, that was awful. I know, but oh God. Okay, we'll move on.
Let's move quick.
It's quickly without slipping. No, you see, it's catchy. This double pun thing, Here you think you were going to be deep and meaningful about masks, and now we're on banana puns.
It's a whole bunch of the bloody things. Yes.
Oh God, we're hanging off a tree. Anyway, it's I'm going to stop now. But for me, it's been one of those extraordinary moments of sort of flow, and I think everybody that listens to this, you have certain moments in your life where things just flow. And my whole idea of Be More Banana, it just sits and it lands with everybody that I tell it to. I'm like, we don't have enough fun and joy in our lives, and I guess this is a mask. We get caught up in, well, I've got to be very adult. I'm very successful, I'm this, I'm not successful, I'm that, I'm whatever it might be. There is not enough permission across the world for us to have more fun. And the ironic thing is that I've then sort of looked into the more sort of academic stuff behind it, and there's a lot of rationale. The more fun we have, the more joy we have, the more happiness we feel, the more productive we are. It's great for all of our levels in our mental health, etc., etc. And it has become a bit of a thing for me. And it has become a thing of like, how can I help the world have more fun and joy? And it's just sort of, it keeps growing, and I did my TED talk about it, my TEDx, which was cool. So as far as I'm aware, I am the only person to have done a TEDx dressed as a fruit. But it's been really interesting because I could never have done this had I not done the process that I was alluding to before, because actually there's not a threat about me. And actually the whole idea about fun and joy is at the heart of all of the work that I do, and is the reason that I think I'm here as a human being. And actually, because I've spent lots of time playing lots of different roles and exploring, actually the banana costume was just a vehicle to help other people really sort of unmask their own sense of fun and really sort of unmask their own sense of joy. And it is amazing. You walk around with something like that. And I've done other things since. I've been a Smurf. I walk around as an elf. I walk around quite often as very different things just because I find it quite amusing. But it's amazing when you do that and the only intention is to have fun. Once adults get over their skepticism, and they're fine, like little kids, as kids, we're all fine with playing and having loads of joy. And that's how we learn as well. But as adults, it's like, oh, no, I couldn't possibly enjoy that. And when they realise, actually, no, she's just here and she's just having fun, you can see their mask dropping. And it's the same as, if I'm doing comedy and but when people go to a comedy, they've already let that mask of like, I'm going to enjoy myself. And what I want to do is help more people go, but you can do that every day. You don't have to necessarily go to a comedy, show or go and watch something on YouTube or whatever. Actually, in order to really unmask ourselves so that we can be truly ourselves, we have to let our little child play, and we have to find that time, because lots of people go, oh, I haven't got time for that. And I'm like, but that's a myth, and that's a mask within itself.
It is.
So that's the banana thing,
And it's an extraordinary growing movement that you have in the Be More Banana. It is. As I'm sat here listening to you, and in fact, so I haven't confessed that to listeners where I record this podcast, and I guess I'm about to, really, because it's really pertinent. So I turf my triplets out of their playroom because it's actually really enclosed. It's a wonderful position in the house. Can't hear any traffic or anything like that. And set up a podcast booth in here. And it's a relatively large room, but we take it over. And in fact, the triplets are starting a podcast as a result of this themselves. But just beside me, it's going to be great fun. Oh, God knows what we'll produce, but we're teaching them about this. And so, but to my left, as I'm speaking, is a big rack of fancy dress clothes all hung up. Because there's 3 of them, you can imagine that it's actually pretty big. There's everything you can think of. Literally everything, flamenco dancers to Minnie Mouse ears to, and all sorts of things. And I have some beautiful pictures of the boys in what would typically be seen as girls' fancy dress, except they don't think that way, which is brilliant at this point, and I hope it lasts. And as I'm listening to you, I can't help but look over and look at these things and think, I haven't dressed up in ages. I haven't dressed up, I used to revel in having these red flamenco shoes with white dots on them. And, that's not the same as dressing up as a banana, but they brought a lot of joy to a lot of people because they were outside the norm. And I wear a lot of corporate kit, And as you were speaking, I was just thinking, I have such a buried desire to, it wasn't as buried as much as this, but I buried my desire to be a nun day a month, because I couldn't find a real wimple, and I refused to wear something from some ridiculous, fancy dress shop, no matter how good it is. I don't want a fancy dress nun's outfit. I want a real one from Ireland. And so if there's anyone listening that can help, please come forward. And I'm not joking either. I know you can hear in my voice, I'm not joking. I really want to be Sister Fanny for a day a month. And she'll wear
We'll just let that one just sit just for a minute, hey?
I've just set it free into the universe. I've told them myself.
You really have. And you now know you're going to be inundated with nun outfits from people that are now lapsed nuns.
Oh, God, if there's any... Actually, on that note, I've just realised you've made me think about it. I won't mention her name yet because I need to check out this piece of information. But I am going to be in conversation with a US woman who used to be a nun, and she.
Amazing! It's like all of your nun dreams.
Well, I went to a convent, so listen. We don't need a therapy session in this podcast episode, but actually, I wanted to do good as Sister Fanny. I wanted to go and do some charitable works. But there's a funny piece that as I was listening to you when you said for no other reason other than to have fun and joy, I actually believe that the reason I haven't found my wimple is because I had converted it. I'd collapsed it into, yes, in order to be silly, indulge myself, let myself, free myself to have permission to do this, I've got to convert it into something of worth, of productivity, of contribution. So let's go and do some charity works as Sister Fanny. But to hell with it. Actually, I really want to go drink pints in a pub as Sister Fanny. And just enjoy it. So I'm wondering what other...
It's process. It's process. I think it's. I think as adults we get really caught up in outcomes, especially those of us that are in business in any way, shape, or form. We're all about outcomes. It's like, oh, have I been doing that? And even with parenting, it's outcomes. It's like, well, I must do that, and then I must do that. And if you're with your kids, actually, I remember there was a bit with where William was building some Lego, and there was part of me that was like, but it doesn't look like how it's meant to look. And then I had that moment. I just was like, because it doesn't have to look like that. And I think from the theatre world and coming from that part, actually the process is as important as the outcome. And you're right, from the way that you're sort of talking about Sister Fanny, which was not a phrase I was expecting myself to be saying on this particular podcast, but now I am. I'm quite pleased with it. it should just be the process. And when I look back on now where Be More Banana has taken me, and the very fact that I have that tattooed on my arm, it was because honestly, I just trusted the process. I wasn't doing it going, I'm going to dress up as a banana, so by the end of it, I can have a TEDx, I'll probably have a tattoo, and I'll probably create a website and a whole movement about it. That was never in my head. And I think it's really important just to trust the process and not always get fixated on the outcome. And I think, with that sort of with the mask thing, it's trusting the process of unmasking without knowing what you're going to reveal. But that's terrifying. And as somebody that's done it and still doing it, it can be really scary. But then the rewards of it, you kind of find yourself in the world in a very different way.
Yeah, don't you just? Absolutely. It's you have no idea where that will take you. And yes, as terrifying as it is, it's as exciting. So it's the reverse of it. So before we wrap up, where can people find you? Where can people find Be More Banana and come and see you?
Well, they can find me if they read Psychologist magazine. I'm their clown in residence. So I do a Facebook Live every month on Psychologist, and I write for their magazine. I am currently writing my new one-woman show. So I'm going to be doing little bits of stand-up between August and December, predominantly in London. So if you want to find out where I'm going to be performing, then join me on my Facebook page. And I have a Facebook page. It's Emma Stroud. It's got a picture of me dressed as a banana. The only one dressed as a banana. So I'll put all my gigs coming up there. And then next year I'm going to be on tour. So it's not going to be just London. I'm going to do a full theatre show next year as well. And then I gig. And the main way of finding out where I'm gigging is always on my Facebook page. And very soon, I say with an ironic smile on my face, very soon there will also be Emma.Stroud.com, which is being developed at the moment. So by the time, I would like to think that will be up in by about September. Yeah. So just kind of Google my name and you'll see a fantastic, very exciting new website that I'm gently working on and unmasking and unrevealing as we speak.
Perfect. Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know that sharing about your journey of unmasking and your relationship with masks is totally relevant to listeners. I know that they'll have, learned so many takeaways from this. I have. Maybe I'm that one person.
I've done the one. It's all right. I'm going to change my numbers now.
You've certainly impacted the way I'm thinking, and I'm going to hope, fingers crossed, for a Wimple, and also other outfits, other ways of expressing, and being more banana in the world for sure. So thank you for that. I'm really grateful.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, darling.
I can't tell you how pleased I was that Emma was so open in this episode, because it's pretty easy for us all to layer up our masks. I don't know about you, but I'm left with a resounding question this conversation has triggered, and it's this one. Well, actually, it's two. What's my most used mask? And why do I use it? I'm going to really think about this. I know I've had several masks in my life. Yeah, I really have. I did arrogant really well for years. If I was a guy, I'd have been called an arrogant dick. Not too sure what I'd call it, but I've been working on that one for quite a long time. And a lot of that has been about vulnerability. So, yeah. So what's my most used mask? What's your most used mask? And why do you use it? By the way, if you ever fancy writing to me with your thoughts about this podcast, about, what it's doing for you, what you'd like more of, please do write to me at podcast@schoolformothers.com. That's podcast@schoolformothers.com. So coming up next week, we're continuing with another powerhouse mother rocking it out in the world. And this time we're going across the pond. I can't wait to bring you my conversation with Cheryl Benton on the theme Grown Up. It's different. It's very different. So that's it. Till next week. Same time, same place. Meet me here. Thank you for joining us again. Here's to you and your great week.
Thank you for tuning in to the School for Mothers podcast. To continue the conversation and keep your dose of inspiration up, head over to schoolformothers.com/podcast, where you'll find bonus content from Danusia and her guests on habits, recommendations, books, best apps, time-saving secrets, life hacks, health, sleep and anything in between. That's schoolformothers.com/podcast.